Really excited to have the Music Industry Therapy Collective today. So we got Laurie and we got Sascha. Laurie Pegg is an integrative counselor who takes a flexible, personalized approach, drawing from multiple therapeutic methods to support each client's unique needs. Her work focuses on helping individuals understand how past experiences shape present behaviors, identify use unhelpful patterns and build healthier ways of coping. With over 20 years in the music industry, including roles in festivals, sponsorship, venue management, and as a content manager and booker for London's O2 Arena, she brings deep insight into the pressures of creative careers, as we all know very well. I love it. Sascha. Heeney brings over 30 years of experience in live music with a deep understanding of touring that was gained through working alongside agents, promoters, and venues. So, alongside her industry career, she spent 15 years as a psychiatric nurse, specializing in complex care. In 2024, she became the dedicated tour welfare officer for Dua Lipa's Radical Optimism Tour, with MITC pioneering a role that provides confidential support, psychological care, and restorative practices for artists and crew throughout touring life. And the whole case study on the Dua Lipa tour is incredible. So you guys are in for a treat. Please give a warm welcome to our girls, Laurie and Sascha. Thank
I'm going
you.
to spotlight y'all. Hey, ladies. I'm going to spotlight both Sascha and Lori. And then, Lori, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, that'll be great. Also, guys, I did say in the chat, you can write questions in there that I can just have your name in my head so I can call on you during the Q&A. Or when we get to the Q&A, you can just do the little react, raise hand, and I'll also be able to call on you that way. But they're just not going to answer the questions in live time. It'll be saved for the end. But yeah, you guys, the floor is yours. I'm so excited for this. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? It is working. Great stuff. So yeah, thank you for having us. We're really excited to be here today as well. A little bit about us. We are the MITC. MITC are a group of ex-music industry professionals. We come from all walks of life within music, and we've worked in live, labels, management, and we've all retrained in some capacity to be either psychotherapists, psychologists, or counselors. The idea is that we understand the world in which you work, and as a result, we can find the solutions that you need. We've all lived it, we've been there, we've been side of stage, we understand the pressure that you're under. The easiest way, I think, is to illustrate what the MITC is to tell you our own personal story of how we've ended up being here. And how we got here. Sascha and I actually met at a festival many moons ago in a very romantic porter cabin, working over an even more romantic photocopier. We did all the very basic jobs at the very start, but we progressed in our careers in various capacities. I stuck to live music, really. I worked again on lots of festivals, and then ended up working in venues in London. And I graduated onto the O2, which was a wonderful experience. It was really brilliant and a really great achievement. But within it, I experienced my own struggles, and I also saw people that were really struggling around me. And I knew I wanted to stay in music, but I knew I wanted to be able to help people. And the idea that I had was that I would go away, retrain as a therapist, and come back in some capacity. And luckily for me, I found the MITC, and I realized that our goals were aligned, and I joined. And yeah, I've just been absolutely inspired by the work that they do. And I hope that my own personal experience, and now my own uh, um, just my own personal view on things, but also my training, everything that I have, can help other people in the industry. So I'll let Sascha just quickly say what she's kind of done and how she's ended up here.
Hello, can you hear me? Thanks for having us again. Laurie, when you said that, I was doing the math on the porter cabin thing. I think it was like 20 years. What? That's crazy. Anyway, yeah, like Laurie, really, have a long background in music, starting off, gosh, 1920, but we're always working in live, always working for promoters or agents, venues and stuff like that, as already said. I always had an invested interest in mental health. My first degree was in psychology, and I still did a lot of mental health volunteering and stuff throughout my years in music. So I don't know. I kind of knew that maybe my path was going that way, but I couldn't quite work out how. And then about 15 years ago, I retrained as a psychiatric nurse, predominantly specialising in secure services and complex care, which is what I still do now, as well as doing events and tours. So I kind of plate spin two jobs really. A couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to go on tour as a clinician with the Dua Lipa tour, which I'll tell you a little bit more about later. So I've always known that there was a need for more support on the road, but it was just trying to work out the best way we could actually execute that. So for the last 2 years, pretty much we were building that role and then taking it out on the roads. And like I said, I'll talk to you later more about that in detail. But yes, so that's kind of me in a nutshell for now. I'll pass you back to Laurie.
Thank you very much. So what do MITC stand for and what do we do? So we're a non-profit, a CIC, community interest company. We aim to be solutions focused. We work with the industry to spot what's missing and what we can do to fill the gap. We want therapy and mental health help to be accessible to everybody. And we want to keep advocating for this and finding solutions to provide it. We're results driven and we want to improve things by producing data, which is much needed, to show what works and raise the funding needed to make it happen. So when we break it down, we do a lot. We do workshops and hello, is that okay? We do a lot. We do workshops and reflective groups, which is where we go out and we deliver workshops on tours to groups within the industry themselves. So it might be record labels, management companies. The sessions cover all sorts of things. We normally do something bespoke to what we have been requested to do. So it covers a lot of different avenues. We've done healthy touring, stress and recovery, anxiety, healthy communication, crisis management, psychological safety, diversity, the list goes on. The format is always practical, it's interactive, and it's discussion-led. And we've done this on some pretty big tours, Tate McRae, Dua Lipa, Radiohead, and The Script, to name a few. We also offer supportive resources, which are practical tools designed specifically for live music. These include things such as our touring and mental health book, which we call the Bible, which is just full of such wonderful advice, information, personal stories from people who've been out on tour, which really help, I think, bring a really unique perspective to some of the things that people face when they are on tour, and from people who've experienced it firsthand. We also offer Ask the Therapist sessions and bespoke educational content. We offer online psychotherapy, coaching, which is a confidential service built around the realities of touring and irregular schedules. It's essentially mental health check-ins, it's flexible, and we offer ad hoc sessions with therapists who have lived and worked in the music industry. We offer backstage therapy where on-site support is needed, and also mental health first aid training, which is like physical first aid training, but for mental health. And then, as Sascha alluded to earlier, we also provide a touring welfare officer for tours. And that is where I am going to hand you over to Sascha, who's going to talk about the work she did on the Dua Lipa tour. Now, apologies, I am controlling the old presentation here. So Sascha, you might have to tell me when to click the screen if I don't keep up.
Will do.
Great. I will be your able assistant, hopefully. Here we go.
Yeah, so I suppose I was trying to think of the best way to talk about this role, and I think it's probably good to break it down as to why such a role is actually needed in the first place, the vision behind it, what the role entailed, and ultimately was it successful. I think why there's a need for such a role, it's probably quite self-explanatory to all of you. Touring is a hard existence. It comes with a lot of benefits, and the reason we love it, but there's also a very hard world. It lacks HR, it lacks occupational health, it's high in pressure, low on sleep. It can be quite a dysfunctional microcosm at times. So as Laurie said, I mean, here in the UK, there are quite a lot of support places now to offer support to people in the music industry, but the one thing that seemed to be lacking was support for people on the road that actually were out on tour. So the tour director for Dua Yeah, there we go. Um, he'd read the book, he'd read the Touring Mental Health Guide. He got in contact with Tamsin, who wrote this, and collectively they spoke about a role that could go on the road. So they spoke about, would this be a full-time thing? What would it entail? What would the skill set be of the person going on the road? How would it be accepted? All these things. Then they came to me, and then we kind of spoke about the role. And well, it was quite unusual though, because this hadn't been done, so we were kind of writing a job description, almost like hypothesizing it, because we just didn't know how what the need would be on the role. We kind of thought about the usual anxieties and things that do happen amongst people on the roads, but again, we weren't sure. And I suppose this is a good time to mention, we got to remember that health and welfare and care is subjective to us all, and you've got a group of, well, 150 people on the roads. Each single person on that road has individual needs. So I think one of the biggest thing we were trying to present to the tour was, having someone on the road we can give holistic and individual care to people, because you'd have someone that's dedicated to deal with things in real time, someone that can mitigate risk in real time, someone that can triage health, someone that can just be there. So that was a real, I suppose that was the real selling point. And what I discovered, that was one of the biggest things, whilst I was out on tour, that the feedback from the people were, it was so good to have someone that could just deal with things in real time. Um, so so what did the role entail? I mean, all sorts, and it kind of goes back to, again, individual needs. We all agreed that a preventative rather than cure model of care was the way forward. We all wanted to try and try and outset any risk we can, or, as you know, before problems get too big on the road. So so my main job out on the road, really, I acted as a confidant, obviously a mediator doing conflict resolutions, a health coach, a lot of advocate work, safeguarding if when needed, and activity planning as well. Now, I suppose that, with activity planning, that was a way of kind of just trying to nurture a healthy touring culture on days off, trying to do nice things for people, trying to get the groups together and things like that. And that was something that actually went down really well amongst the groups. But then lots of other things came up along the way. We would triage a lot of medical health issues, physical health issues, and we had people that hit crisis because of external things happening whilst on tour. So there was a lot of crisis management. No 2 days were the same, put it that way. And yeah, like I say, we'd just kind of ride the wave, or I would ride the wave with everyone there and just try to keep them as, as safe as possible. And just one of the big things we really wanted the crew to feel was to be heard. And sometimes that can be missed in big touring groups. So having someone that was dedicated specifically for this role was a really powerful message out there. So I suppose on a day-to-day how it was managed. So I suppose I was kind of my own department. I'd have my own room, necessarily, obviously, because of confidentiality. People could book in with me whenever they want. They had my WhatsApp number, within reason, obviously. So if the crew were in, then I would always be in the venue as well. So loading days, I'd make sure I was there. People had access. And just to note as well, so this service was offered from the caterers through to the artists. There wasn't a single person on this tour that didn't have access to this welfare service. Even if some of the truckers that joined us at certain points needed a bit of assistance and support, then of course they could get that as well. So there'd be a quiet space. People would know that everything they said would be confidential within those walls, unless there was a safeguarding issue, but I'd always stipulate that. And it took a while to obviously build up those therapeutic relationships, because it'd not been done before, and some people were just surprised that there was someone on the tour for this actual position, and some people are just a little bit suspicious as well, um, to talk. And what I found a big reason for that was, we work with a lot of freelancers in our business, and people worry that if they talk up or, show what they deem as a sign of weakness in any way, that, they're replaceable, or, you know, they'll be moved on. And I think once they knew that that wasn't the case, that they're free to talk, they're free to express themselves, when they talked to me, that there was psychological safety, it worked really well. So, like I said, because I was on the whole tour, once I built those relationships, it was really good. It was really powerful. So yeah, so that was the kind of day to day. Yep, that was what the role entailed. Was it successful? So yeah, it was. And I suppose how I can prove that was, obviously there was testimonials that I was able to collect from people, but I was also in a position to collect data, which really strengthens the case. Having things that I can present quantitatively is a good thing. So I was able to collect data twice throughout the tour, in the early days and then later on at the end, anonymously. And then we were able to look at the data and work out what worked, what didn't work, what people found effective, what they didn't find effective. Yeah, I think, yeah, Laurie's just put up some of the numbers now. Yeah, I mean, you can read those. 96% reported positive experience of having a welfare officer. 88 would recommend having a welfare officer on tours. Yeah, 84% reported the presence of a welfare officer contributed to more supportive tour culture. I've also got yeah, another couple of quotes that aren't on there, but people were saying, I managed stress or health more effectively. I felt empowered and better equipped to cope. I felt more comfortable to get help if I needed. There was a greater sense of workplace safety. And I felt a greater sense of belonging. So these are all really positive things that people fed back. So yeah, as a kind of position, do I think it's needed on tours? Absolutely. We know that this is maybe a bit of a gold standard thing to have on tours, fully aware that, many tours wouldn't be able to afford or accommodate to have a dedicated person with them at all times, which is why, MITC, for example, they've got other initiatives that they can roll out for tours. In fact, Laurie will talk about that in a sec. And other initiatives for smaller tours or bands or artists that, haven't got the luxury of having someone on tour with them. Yeah, in fact, Laurie, do you want to talk about those?
Yep, absolutely. So we're in the process of launching several funds actually to make mental health services accessible to more people. One of them, which has just been launched, which is really exciting, is the Electronic Music Executive Stress Management Program. It's a 6-month pilot, and it is preventative stress management program for entry to mid-level professionals who work in electronic music. It's designed to help participants manage pressure more effectively, reduce burnout risk, and build more sustainable careers. The amazing thing about this is that it's been funded and provided by Maria May, who's an agent at CAA personally, and which I just think is such an amazing thing for her to have done. And we really hope that this initiative and, her doing that will really inspire other exec level people to maybe do the same, or even other organizations to follow suit, just to offer more programs like this for people working in music. Another thing we're working on at the moment and offering at the moment is an online platform, which we've built. It's an online welfare coaching platform, which is available 24/7 to anyone who works in music, utilizing MITC therapists all across the world, which means obviously we cross all different time zones, which means we can obviously be available whenever they need it. And we, again, understanding that people have pressure when it comes to money and being able to afford access to counselling or therapy. We're trying to launch at the moment, or we're in the process of launching, a pay it forward scheme, which we're hoping means that bigger organizations can donate or pay towards smaller tours or smaller companies in a kind of pay it forward fashion, whereby they can make it accessible to anyone who really needs it. And also, really excitingly, and today it's a bit of an exclusive for everyone that's on the call today, we're pleased to be developing the Charlie's Hugs Fund, which is again a new pilot fund in collaboration with Just a Bunch of Roadies. It's designed to make specialist therapy more accessible to people who live and work in music and touring. The fund exists because many people in our sector, particularly freelancers, crew, are on lower or unsustainable incomes and are often priced out of private therapy. The way this is going to work through the pilot is that eligible applicants will be able to access 10 sessions with a specialist MITC therapist at a reduced rate. And the proposed model is that it's a 50-50 subsidy. So they pay 50%. And then obviously Charlie's Hugs Fund will pay the other, hopefully making it more affordable for them. Applications will be through the MITC website once the fund is live. And people will be able to complete a simple online form, and the MITC will use that to connect the applicant with the relative or appropriate therapist that will be able to help them from our network. If you want more information on that, then please follow the MITC website, or you can go directly to Jabor for more information. So that's a little bit about what we're doing for other people. We thought it might be useful for you today just to offer you a few insights, tips and hints into the kind of information we provide, whether it's through our workshops or through our other avenues, just to give you a little bit of a taste of what we do, a bit of a insider insight. One of the things we do at MITC is to try and help you make sense of your world and what you are experiencing, maybe inviting you to look more closely at what's really going on around you. Being on tour can be a bit of a whirlwind. We all know that. Sometimes it's hard to make sense of why we feel a certain way. I think it's really useful to think about tour as being like in a relationship, and we all know they can be very complicated. What complicates this even more is that really there's 3 relationships in play at one time. There's the broader tour relationship, which is the professional tour family, if you like. That's where we find our shared goals, our shared objectives, and that includes groups and smaller subgroups. There's also interpersonal relationships going on. That's maybe our one-to-one interactions. So that'll be kind of close working relationships that we have, maybe even friendships that we have on tour, but also it includes our friendships and families back at home, because just because we go on tour doesn't mean that those relationships stop or end. We still have to maintain them. And then finally, the relationship, which is probably the most overlooked and probably the one that's the least understood and the one that's the most neglected, is the relationship that we have with ourselves. At any point, all of these can be wonderful, dysfunctional, or difficult. But the thing that they all have in common is that we need to maintain them, we need to work at them, and we need to truly understand them. So why is understanding ourselves so important? Ultimately, we need to take the time to really get to know and understand ourselves. We know how busy life is on tour, and we know that taking time out can seem slightly overwhelming at times. The idea of, just taking some time out for yourself when it's so busy is probably the last thing we think we should do. Tour life does get blamed for a lot of things, but ultimately we're responding to our own triggers, which are personal to us. We know that this stuff doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. It's quite alien to sit and think about ourselves and what is happening for us in certain situations. And that's really why things like MITC exist. We're trying to find the best solutions to help people understand themselves a little bit more. It's about self-awareness and taking ownership of our own stuff so that we can be happy and healthy and hopefully have the capacity to look after other people while we're out on tour. So what does supporting other people look like? Tour relationships are complicated. It can be like family, and families can be difficult, dynamics are difficult, and it can be quite dysfunctional at times. You're together 24/7, it's intimate, it's intense. Sometimes it can be too much, sometimes it can feel like too little. So how do you know what others might need from you? One of the things we teach is a really simple way of asking someone what they might need. It's also really useful to think about what you might need when you listen to this little exercise. It's actually practiced in primary schools between teachers and primary school children. So it is wonderfully simple, but it really does work. What we encourage you to do is to ask someone, do they want to be heard? Do they want to be helped? Or do they want to be hugged? The idea behind this is obviously sometimes we just want to speak to someone about our issues, our problems, what's going on for us. And we don't actually want, them to maybe respond with ideas on what we can do. Sometimes actually when we're really stressed, that can be completely overwhelming. And the idea that we can just say to someone, I just need you to be here to listen to me. I just want to be able to speak to you about what's happened is a really strong thing to say. Sometimes we do need practical assistance though. And, we need to make tour an environment where people are able to ask for help and to know, more importantly, the right place to go to help. That's why having someone like Sascha on tour is really, really useful, because you've got a really obvious place that you can go to if you have got a problem. But, if you don't have the luxury of a welfare officer, understanding where you can go for help. Is it management? Is it someone else that's dedicated to helping people on tour? Just knowing where that place is, or is it just a friend? Is it someone you can just speak to and ask, what do you think I should do? Is really important. And then finally, just to be hugged. And it doesn't mean literally. I know some people now don't like to be touched, and that's fine as well. But the idea that you can go to someone and just say, I just need your presence. I need you around. Oh, indeed, I do need a hug. And some people are very willing to give hugs. I am one of them. Just that kind of sense of knowing what someone needs and knowing what you yourself needs is really key here. That sometimes is enough to set the tone of a conversation. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to understand through communication how we can help somebody. Relationships aren't easy. We can't rely on telepathy. We can't just think we understand what someone needs. The key is asking them and to really understand that for ourselves as well. So that's just a little insight into some of the things we do, very simplified, but it's just to give you a little taster of that. So I'm just going to hand back to Sascha now to talk about our book, because we've got a very special offer for you guys today.
I always want a hug from a dog every time I see that slide. Oh yes, so the book, we mentioned it earlier. This is a big book. It's a great book. If you haven't read it already, I thoroughly recommend it. It covers so many issues with touring, from preparing for a tour, interventions while you're on tour, as Laurie said, how we can help other people on tour, and very importantly, post-tour, which can sometimes be overlooked. I can definitely speak firsthand. When this tour finished after 14 months, I struggled definitely more than I anticipated. And I think we can't underestimate how consuming being on tour is. And then when you leave and come back to your own life, it can be really daunting actually. So this book covers all sorts of really important issues. There is, like I said, it's a big book, but there's an audio version which is great, and then there's a 50% off QR code there if anyone's interested. And I think we've got, so obviously we've been talking about MITC, and that's the email address if anyone wants to get in contact with us or any of the other therapists, or just ask any questions or anything at all really about what we've spoken about, or any curiosities you might have about what's offered, or any feedback about what should be offered. And that's another great thing. Is there anything we're missing? Is there anything we could do better? All feedback is good, and we really appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We're now going to start the Q&A. So what you can do is just push the little react button and raise your hand. And then I can call on you. If that isn't what you want to do, that's totally fine. You can just put the question in the chat, and they can just read it and answer it from there if you don't want to have a one-on-one conversation. But we will go ahead and get started. So whoever wants to go first.
Don't mind going if that's okay.
You go, Casey. Yeah.
Hi. My name is Casey, and I am so excited to learn about you doing this because I work as a coach and I work in the same environment. I worked on the business side for a really long time and then jumped into touring, and so I play a similar role on a lot of the tours that I work on. And I'm really curious. Sometimes there are, especially from people who have been working on the road for a really, really long time. This has not been a resource that's been available to them, and it's foreign to have this level of support, which we want it to be just as accessible as catering, but that might take a little bit of time. And so I'm really curious about how you have worked to really establish, especially with some more seasoned touring folks, um, establishing that relationship of trust and how it may have been used by some people who or maybe older in that camp. And just, I would love the feedback that you received from your role being there and being new.
You know what? This is a question I get asked all the time. And it was something before going on the tour, I didn't know myself even how I would address it. I guess that some of like the more veteran travelers would be a little bit more ambivalent about talking to me. And that was definitely the case. So I was trying to work, I was like tactically thinking, how am I going to, crack that nut kind of thing. And it is hard. And I totally understand that that would be the case. And what I found was just being present, just being yourself. And eventually it's like it's continuation of care. The more they see you and the more you just get those little relationships built, that's it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were people that I knew would never be knocking on my door at all. And that's just the way it is. And you just got to accept that. Some people just aren't going to do it. But what I think they liked, like I said, that, those kind of crew members was the fact that I was brought in to oversee everyone else. They loved to know that there was someone there for maybe the younger crew members or those that haven't really toured that well, and they felt they really liked that. And what I do as well, I just try to do little things to break the ice with those, with those sorts. I don't know, for example, I'd find out that they might enjoy doing a certain something on their day off. So one of the things I did was I researched, like I said, activity planning. So I might know that, I don't know, this is actually a true example, that I knew someone like clay pigeon shooting. It's true. So I was like, I'd make up like little WhatsApp groups to again organize events for people that like quite specialist things. So I'd be like, okay, well, if we're going to a next town, I'll find a place that we can all go and do that. And although it wasn't a direct, it's a therapeutic intervention of sorts, and they just really like that kind of thing. So, it was something, and yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because some people just won't have any of it. Other people will be on your door all the time. It's yeah. But the key was the consistency of me being there was it was a really good thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no worries.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey. Okay, who else?
I can't raise my hand, but can I ask a question?
Of course, yeah.
Hey, so I'm from Sacramento, a local stagehand and production runner there. Um, the local that I work with has I've noticed a need for like mental health help. Uh, what are some resources you suggest to help kind of start this with, like you were talking about, the old heads that aren't necessarily receptible to it?
Do you want me to? Yeah, I mean, like I say, it is a difficult one. I suppose when you're on the road, one of the best things you can do is always, like as Laurie said, always ask, just so people know that you're there to listen if they need, and be able to triage as well, no matter where you go. Just know that it depends on the level of how they're struggling, really. But if it's something that might need more assistance, then where can they go? What can be done? Um, but it is really difficult when someone is not very accepting of like an intervention or help, but you know, just showing that you're caring, that you're there to listen is a really strong thing.
I actually heard a beautiful example on one of the tours that I did a workshop on, where we got everyone together at the start of the tour just to kind of brief them on what we were doing and what we could provide. One of the crew members who worked in the lighting department had the very same problem. She could see people were sort of suffering more. I like that word, veteran. People on tour were kind of not, you know, she could see they needed help, but almost didn't know how to address it. And she created a flight case, just full of stuff that people could come and access and use. So there was loads of lovely things in there. She put copies of the mental health book in there, but she also just put things that they might use, pamper session stuff, like all sorts of crazy things. And she saw bit by bit that people would come up and just use this flight case. And I think she'd actually included like a voucher, like a need to talk thing. So people could take it and just kind of talk to each other about issues and problems. And I just thought that was a really lovely way, like a practical way of trying to help. It was just her doing her own little thing, but it was kind of bringing the sense of community together. And I think sometimes that's what people need to know, just that people do actually care, even if they don't know how to accept that help themselves. Just knowing that it's there is enough, just to create a culture on tour where people know that it's a good environment to be in.
And can I just say, just adding to that, there were people on the tour that at the start I thought, yeah, they're never going to interact with me, or they'll never come and ask for help if they need. But moving forward, they did, and it's like I said, it's just time sometimes. That's all it needs with some people.
And also, they've
So
got a wealth of experience. They've got and sometimes it's more they don't know what their role should be, or that they have never been asked before. So the idea that, you know, we created these environments where they could talk about their experiences really opened them up to understanding that we needed something from them as well. And it was amazing to see in these workshops different generations and different, you know, experience levels all coming together and talking about various issues, talking about their own personal experience. And I often think that's a really useful thing to use. Ask someone their story and what's important to them. And quite often that can open up the floor to people actually sharing and trying to help each other.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin. Does anyone else have questions or just wants to share about something? You can totally do that too. Okay, I can go. I have a question actually. Um, I know you guys mentioned like the pay it forward system. If I am working on like a smaller, maybe theater or club level tour, but I'm wanting someone to just be there, like how can you afford, like how do people afford that? Can you just do it a couple of shows? Can you have them come in before your crew even sets out? Um, how can you get that support if you can't afford to have a welfare officer with you throughout the entire run?
So, with the Pay It Forward scheme, the idea behind it is larger organizations are going to donate. We're going to have founding partners, and they're going to donate a certain amount of money each year for 3 years to guarantee funding for up to 50 tours a year. And I think the idea is that it's going to be on a case by case basis, and you're going to apply for what you need. And then the MITC will kind of assess and be able to deliver different options for you. So, I think it's going to be a bit like Sascha said when they were doing the Dua Lipa tour. We're not quite sure what these smaller tours will need. So it's going to have to be kind of an idea of maybe they'll approach us for something specific, like you're saying there. Can we have 2 days at the start of the tour for a workshop? Can we have, you know, someone that offers a post workshop briefing or something that we can do? But I think we're going to have to just test the water as that comes along and kind of decide what is needed as and when people apply.
That's awesome. Thanks. Jenny, I see you have a question, so I'll go ahead and spotlight you.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I love what you guys are doing, and I was just curious. Obviously, it is a newer concept, and I'm working on something less on the mental health side, but more just on the foundational daily rhythms and routines supporting artists getting healthy on the road from like nutrition, fitness, things like that. Obviously, there's is a very dynamic industry. There's lots of different decision makers depending on the tour, the company. Do you guys have any thoughts on who are the best types of people to reach out to in terms of talking to about this idea? Like if it's more managers, tour managers, if you're going straight to like labels or just overall artist management companies. I was just curious if you guys have thoughts on that.
Um, anyone you can talk to,
Yeah,
just get it
yeah,
out there. Basically, see, we're having this kind of issue now. So we've come back for the Dua Lipa tour. We've just put an impact report together about, the
yeah.
findings and how good it is, and how successful it's been, etc. But it's like, right then, who next? Who's going? And
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, there's a big
difficult. So we're
education
like, right
piece.
then. Yeah, of course, agents like it's great, what a great idea, but it's not an artist cost, and they're like
Yeah.
promoters like it's a great
Hmm.
idea, it's not project, and then it's just, kind of like chasing our tail a little bit. So like honestly, I just get in there with
Tough
whoever you can. I
conversations.
mean, yeah. I mean, we just did a conference. I was at a conference last week that was just to tour managers, and that was a
Hmm.
very interesting demographic to talk to.
Yeah,
And I think that they were a good one to kind of hit with this.
totally.
And it sounds great with what you're doing, by the way. When you spoke
Thank
at
you.
the
Yeah,
beginning, that's keep it up. There's a
I
place for
appreciate
it, and
that.
so
Yeah.
if you take anything home from this, be assured there is a
No, this
place
is
for what you're doing
so
for
helpful to hear
sure.
you guys' experience. So
Um,
thank you.
but yeah, just I mean, I suppose if you look at the Dua Lipa example, that came from the artist, and that's
Mhm.
the dream, isn't
Yeah,
it? That the artist is like, wow, I'm gonna think about the welfare of my entire crew,
yeah,
and
that's huge.
that's great. I mean, we all strive. My dream is that it will be in the budget template and it won't even be second thought, it will just
Right.
be in there when they're putting in all the rest of the cost as it should be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, if you've got access to agents, promoters, or just even the production managers, anyone really.
Yeah. Sounds awesome. Thank you.
Awesome, Jenny. Okay, and then I'll do a layer, hopefully that's how you say it.
Yes,
And
that's
there
how
we
you
go.
say it. Hi, I'm Alaire. I'm a lighting director, lighting tech, operator, and stage manager. So I do a little bit of everything from the venue, festivals, and things like that. I came from the wellness industry. I was working in fitness, yoga, body work. I was a massage therapist. And that was sort of like my realm before coming into this one. And definitely curious about the fitness and nutrition, as well as the counseling and workshops and things like that. And I'm wondering if y'all have any experience with like other integrative methods and offerings, like such as yoga and meditation and sound healing. I think there was a sound healer in here
Mm.
before. Yeah. And I think like that's an awesome way to appeal to people who obviously care a lot about sound, but in ways that are like down regulating and speaking to like the nervous system specifically, um, and how like balance in that way can be really helpful for people on the road, um, and how that might help people who may not maybe shyer to talk or like may have like too much on their brains to be able to like integrate more information or like strategies and then sort of like introduce a way of like kind of just like rebalancing, I guess, in a way that doesn't involve like more input.
I think it sounds fantastic. I think what we do is purely a doorway into all of that stuff. And I think what we're trying to do is kind of bang that door, crash through that door to open it up to everything else that exists. Because everything you're saying there has a place and would be wonderful on tour if we could offer it. But again, everything comes down to budgets. So I think ultimately that's what we need to work towards, just something for everyone, because you're quite right, talking therapy doesn't work for everybody and people need different ways of getting help and healing. So I think just that integration would be what we would aim for eventually. And it would be people, I guess, like Sascha, who would spot that on the tour. She might look at someone and say, "You need this," or could we maybe introduce this as a concept for just to try, like, yoga sessions. Let's see, give it a go and see what that does for people. And yeah, I think that's definitely the way forward. We need a more integrative approach, and whatever works for anyone is what we should be aiming to do.
We did
maybe
actually
even
do
like,
that. Oh, sorry.
no,
I was
no,
just
go
going to
ahead, go
say
ahead.
we had kind of splinter groups on days off, like because I got to know people pretty well after that amount of time. I knew that some people we did sound baths. I'd get like a sound healer come in on certain days off, or I knew people that really like yoga, so on days off we'd go and do yoga together. At a hiking group, big one was walking. Walking's a absolute magic on some of the places we went to. So yeah, I mean, it's just finding. So that was the other thing I did. If I would, to each city we went to, I do like a little resource page that, like, where the local sound bath healing was, where the local yoga studio was, Pilates, all these things. So even if we didn't do a group excursion, people were like, okay, well, that's near the hotel, I can go and do that. And then, it kind of saved them the stress or the, anything of having to find that. I'd kind of given the information on those things, because you're absolutely right. They're just absolute winners doing those kind of things when you're on the road.
All right. Thank
Yeah,
you
that's
so
awesome.
much. All right. Anyone else have a question before? Oh, in the chat, Delaney said, what would be some of your suggested resources for statistics, findings, and case studies to help myself and others advocate to a company, director, producer, artist, label to consider providing funding or resources for mental, physical, nutritional health and support on tours and festivals?
Well, one thing, just going back to what I was saying earlier, but we've almost completed our own impact report based on this as a case study. I can't think of anything much better that you could present really than this, because we've collected the data. It's recent, it's firsthand, and it shows that there's almost like a necessity for such a role on tours, on long tours especially. It's So I mean, that's the reason we did it as well. Having, numbers, having hard kind of empirical quantitative data that you can show is probably the strongest argument you can have, as well as testimonials, of course. So if you write to MITC and say that this, mention it once it's all been signed off, I can't see why not it can't be sent out as well.
Thanks, ladies. That's awesome. Okay. Well, no one else has a question. Thank you guys so much, Sascha and Laurie, for doing this. You guys are just so wise and such a niche topic that I think a lot of us were really excited to hear about. And everyone who's on this call, thank you for attending. We will post a recording shortly of the call if you want to go back and look at it. Also, throughout the next couple of weeks, we'll have some clips posted on our socials and stuff, just for you guys to look back at and share with others. Be sure to check out the audiobook. I will be sending a recap email that you guys will all get to your emails, that will have the code and the link and all those things, along with the website and MITC's Instagram and stuff, just so you guys can stay plugged in. Make sure to connect with each other on this. We'd love to just see you guys at all of our masterclasses. It would be great. And just continuing to facilitate that community and stuff, what we're doing here at Gigs. So yeah, other than that, you guys always can email Gigs any questions, any other guests you would like us to have masterclasses with. And then Sascha and Laurie as well, you guys can get in contact with them through the MITC with any other questions, because I have so many. You guys are so interesting, and it's a really, really great initiative that you guys are pushing, and we're excited to support. Gigs is excited to support in any way that we can. It's just the beginning. So yeah, that's all I got for y'all.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah. Bye.